Hello.
Hello.
We are here. We are going to do something.
We're
going to call Dan Telfer very soon. I told him we were going to start talking at 4, so we're going to get right into it. And then we'll do our intro after this.
Because we're late.
We're late-sos. 15 minutes is actually not too bad for us as far as lateness goes. Hello.
Hello?
Hey, what's going on, Dan? This is Greg.
Hi, Greg.
And Shelly is here as well.
Hi, Dan.
Hi, Shelly.
How you doing?
Good. I've got you guys in a muted tab in my browser so I can see what you look like while you sit there.
Oh, my gosh. And we're on a delay, too, so you'll, know how to look at us in the future.
You'll see the future us.
This is amazing.
You could say, watch out, Greg. She's going to punch you in the face.
She just punched me.
Oh, man.
Some wingman you are.
Well, thanks for calling in, man. I'm excited to talk to you about your dungeon mastering history, as well as what it's like doing dungeon mastering for Nerd Poker.
I would love to tell you whatever you need to know, Greg.
Nice. All right. So, for people who don't know, let's start with more about what you do on the comedy scene. How do people know you as a comedian? Or
Sure. Well, yeah, I've been writing and performing comedy for about 20 years. I mostly consider myself a stand-up comedian, but I've also been the social media producer for At Midnight on Comedy Central for 4 years since the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And I've written on TV shows. I'm a writer. Love to write. And yeah, I do stand-up all the time in between all the other stuff.
When did you start doing stand-up?
I started doing open mics in college, and I mostly did improv and sketch and theater for a long time. I'm a big theater nerd.
We are too.
We are.
Yeah, I heard. I'm very excited about this. And I actually just got to reminisce with my stage combat teacher. I was a teacher's assistant. I am SAFD certified in 8 weapons for the stage.
Whoa.
Including a gold star in Sword and Shield.
One of my wife's ex-boyfriends was certified in all those things.
Watch out for him.
I know. I was like, I'm not certified. I don't know if I can
Certifiable.
I can't live up to the hype.
In 7th grade, in my theater combat class,
Yeah.
I really punched Amber Mendelsohn in the face.
Oh, no!
Screw you,
And
Amber.
everybody was like, she did that on purpose. I didn't like her, but I didn't do it on purpose. I was actually totally impressed with myself.
Nice.
But I
It can't be
used
proven.
it. I
It
used
cannot
it
be
to my
proven.
advantage. I'm like, that's right. Don't mess with me.
And I'm sure Dan is like, that's not how you do it. That's not stage combat.
Away from the person
That-
and use what's called a nap to make a popping noise.
I was taught that you punch past them and then.
Yes.
Do you hear that?
I think we can
Not
hear it.
good? Wait. I want him to hear it. I want Dan to hear it.
You didn't see me react. Oh my God, I just got hit in the face.
So, yeah, that just goes to show you what kind of theater major I was. Not that good. Wasn't.
That's super cool. Where did you go to school?
I went to Columbia College of Chicago.
Nice. And is that Chicago where you did all of your stand-up and improv as well?
Yeah. I first started studying at I.O., formerly known as Improv Olympic, before the International Olympic Committee decided that comedy theaters were not allowed to share one of their nouns.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
No sense of humor on those guys.
None.
No, none. And as if you watched last week's Night with John Oliver, they're very interesting over there.
I haven't seen it. Is the most recent one about that?
No, they did an episode last year about, let's just say how interesting that organization is.
Interesting.
Do some research.
Bless their
Now I
heart.
need to
That
get...
kind of interesting.
Sweet. So the whole Chicago scene. Do you know Jared Logan?
I do know Jared Logan. He was like a graduating class ahead of me in stand-up. We did a sketch comedy show together called Don't Spit the Water, where we would dress up as really weird characters and try and get audience members to spit mouthfuls of water that they were holding in their cheeks.
Oh, I like that.
Jared's regular character was this weird redneck in long johns, and let's see, I was mostly Jumbles the Penguin. I would wear a homemade penguin helmet that I made out of paper mache and a hockey helmet, and I would do all this mime, like frightening, like is based on Japanese Buto theater, where you would just try to make people extremely uncomfortable. So yeah, we had a good time doing that, and I at that point was still kind of doing a lot of sketch and coaching improv teams, and I had done solo performance, like one-man show type stuff, and was really interested in stand-up, which he was starting to kill at. So I sort of started tagging along with him at shows and begging him for advice.
Nice. Yeah, we had him on this podcast, like a year and a half ago, around that. Because I had seen that he was a writer on the James Harden show. And then it was like, oh, but he's a dungeon master as well. And then I heard a few rumors that he was many people's favorite dungeon master. And I was like, oh gosh, I want to pick his brain. So yeah, we've been trying to get together and do something, more official soon. But he's a great guy.
Yeah, and I've written on the High Court with Doug Benson. Did a couple of little bits that I wrote for At Midnight. You'll see some stuff. I was a panelist on At Midnight one time. I want to do it with Jared. I want to make fun of Jared because he and I are both yellers when we're in comedy mode.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I saw him up here in Seattle. Yeah, and it definitely had that yelling quality in a funny way.
Yeah.
So then, if you got to get one more panelist who's more, D&D tinged, and then along with Hardwick, you guys will just run the table.
There you go.
They should have Mike Drucker on. I don't know if you know Mike.
Yes.
Drucker.
Yeah.
He would be really fun. He was a guest on Nerd Poker recently, and a lot of fun to play with. I forget how I first got to know him. It might have been through just Jared.
Yeah, because I think they were friends. And he's a game or was in the game journalist world for a little bit too, because he used to work at IGN when they were doing more video stuff. He would write some of the kind of comedy bits for them for when they were kind of doing their first forays into video. So he pops up in that circle of my life as well as the comedy circle. It's pretty cool.
Lots of circles.
Soon there will be this, everybody who plays Dungeons and Dragons will rule the world, I think is what's going to happen.
I've heard that Jared is a much more strict DM than I am. I'm told that he's very rules oriented, whereas I'm much more story oriented.
I don't know how you could be a strict DM with that group that you're DMing. It would be really hard. Rules.
Like, yeah, I'm actually trying to get better with the rules because I know like a good structure can give you a lot of room to have fun. But
I think they're having fun.
Yeah, no, they're having fun, and it's perhaps due to some external encouragement. I forget. I don't know how family friendly this.
Some
whiskey,
inebriants involved.
Whiskey and pizza.
Yeah, a lot of whiskey and pizza. Thank you, Shelley. You know what's going on.
I listen to the show.
I think you were indulging in the herbalism kits.
I actually have never smoked herbalism.
Ever, or just when playing D&D?
Either. I take what's called Lexapro, and I feel like that's enough brain chemistry for me, thanks.
You're like, my mishmash in my brain is all that's necessary. All right, so...
Although I do like scotch, though. I will partake.
Nothing wrong with that.
No.
It's a social lubricant.
That's like a grown-up drink. It's just like...
I know a lot of kids who like scotch. What are you talking about?
Well, scotch was always the liquor I stole first from my dad's liquor cabinet.
Like melted butter. It's a beautiful thing.
So we got your comedy background. When did you start playing Dungeons and Dragons?
I was talking to you about this before, Greg, and I think I told you college, but I think if I'm being honest, I played a little bit of D&D when I was like in junior high, and I didn't play more because it was mostly through my brother, and I didn't want to play with my brother. I wanted to play with like kids who were like a social opportunity. So like he had a big pile of books. He was my younger brother by a year, and I would go through the Monsters Manual like completely obsessively, just looking at the beholders and stuff and going, oh man, I want to do this. And I did play a lot of the Forgotten Realms NES game. That was awesome.
Which one was that? Like the Eye of the Beholder or like the gold box ones?
I think it was just called Forgotten Realms. Like it had
okay.
It was like, original NES, so we're talking late 80s.
Yeah. I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, it was super cool. It was really good at like making you feel like you could explore around a map and like discover hidden dungeons and caves and stuff like that. And you could design your own characters a little bit. You could name them, pick their class and like their attributes and stuff like that. And I love the customization aspect of D&D. So that part I had a ton of fun with even before. And I played a lot of MUDs, multi-user dungeons, before I got a good group in real life. I would play that a lot. So I was primed for D&D a lot before I really started getting serious into it in college. And I think I mentioned earlier before the show too that I played a bit of Vampire the Masquerade.
Oh yeah.
But now, yeah, like these guys have been kind enough to invite me into a group that's been going for like 20 years. These guys used to play with Chris Hardwick and Patton Oswalt back in like the late 90s, and this game has been on and off for that long. And
Wow.
yeah,
I didn't realize that. I mean,
No, I didn't either.
I always assumed it was started up for the podcast, but they've been playing before that, huh?
Oh, absolutely. This podcast is kind of incidental to their group, and that's part of why I'm so honored to be doing it. Sark was their dungeon master for the whole time, and then Blaine took over for a year and a half when I joined the podcast, mostly because Brian's known Blaine like the longest, and they're really good friends. And I've known Brian for maybe 10 years, but compared to how long they've known each other, it's nothing like it. So I came on as a player, and then we took a break because it's really hard to book guests.
Yeah.
It's really stressful, and to like accommodate the podcast studio plus guests plus Brian had a movie to shoot. I had to get cancer real quick and kick that thing's ass, which I did.
Well done. You rolled a 20.
Yeah. Oh, I rolled a 20 against cancer real good. Unfortunately, it was one of those giant cancers, so my rolls weren't as good as they would have been if it was a regular size cancer. But yeah.
Well, congratulations. All joking aside, that's pretty awesome that you were able to do that and return to your one true calling, which is playing D&D.
Yeah, thanks. And not to get too political, but hopefully the government will allow me to continue to get health care. So
No.
Hopefully I won't be Skyping in from Northern Ireland for future.
Well, if you are, we can still accommodate.
Online conversations can happen anywhere.
I hope you will, because I'll get real bored out there. They got like sheep and I guess Guinness. That's it.
And nice, big, thick sweaters. You can just keep trying nice sweaters on.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what Northern Ireland is known for.
Sweaters.
Nothing other. There's no political things going on there either.
No. Newcastle beer, sweaters.
And sheep.
I hear there's some evil creatures in the woods, if you want to go check that out.
Yeah. In the Loch Ness.
Yes.
Scotland.
Oh, that's Scotland, right? Yeah, because it's.
Yes, that's
Yeah, that silence was very much like everybody knows it's Scotland, Greg.
Yeah, the Loch Ness.
Yeah, Shelley had my backup.
And people named Quinn. Don't worry, Dan. If anyone needs to call Greg out, it's me. I'll always take that role.
So when
Stupid.
I know it's true. I'm gonna take all that blame. There is a hashtag about it.
Blame Tito.
It's true. So when they invited you to join Nerd Poker, had you not played in a long time since college, or had you kind of sporadically done?
I played one or two games with my theater friends out in Chicago. Theater is very good for bringing out the nerds. So
yeah, and D&D and theater, hand in hand.
Oh God, they were a magical combination. So I had played a little bit in Chicago, but as I'd started focusing more on stand-up, I was hanging out less with my theater friends, which was sad, but also just like a social timing issue. So once I moved out to LA, Brian was cool enough to invite me on because he knew I had been listening as just a pal and a friend and a nerd. And it was my first real game in a while. And we were playing second edition because that is the edition we had all coincidentally landed on.
Mm-hmm.
But we've since powered up. I think I have all the 5th edition books now that I'm DMing. I think the only one I don't have is that one where it tells you all the cool other player character races you can have. What's that called? It's Voldos?
Volo's Guide to Monsters?
That's right, yeah.
Wait, why was I going to say everything? That's not. That's
Yeah, Xanathar's Guide to Everything is the one that's
up.
coming up this fall. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Volo's Guide,
Greg will hook you up.
for sure.
Right, Greg.
Yeah, Greg, you want to hook that up? Give me some of that good stuff. Actually, my friend, I think she was just on the podcast. You might know her, Jen Kretschmer, told me about it. She worked on At Midnight for a little while as a producer, and yeah.
Yeah, there's
cool.
there's definitely some fun player races to jump into there. We're playing Tabaxi, yeah. Catfolk.
Yeah, what is the weird crow dude? Sark was just on a bonus episode. Yeah, Kenku. He was a Kenku that was a kleptomaniac and was struggling with it. So
they can't
struggling with it.
Yeah, well, because it's hard because they can't they can only mimic sounds and speech. They can't come up with anything on their own. So it's really hard to role play if you take that challenge.
Or easy if you don't.
He did it really well.
Think about it.
It was Sark's first time playing a character since high school, he said, and he named it the character Yeah, okay. And he role-played it real well. It got in a lot of sticky wickets because it couldn't put loot down.
And that's awesome.
Oh, yeah. So what was it like coming into a group that had been playing together for a while?
It was a little stressful at first. I was taking over a character at first for Sarah Gazzardo, who is the only woman in the group. Mm-hmm. And I like to play female characters just for the fuck of it. And I can swear, right? That's cool?
Yeah, no, totes.
Greg's crying.
You can also say stupid words like totes.
I think we'd rather hear the F.
Totes fuck. All right. But yeah, like it was weird because when I took Sarah's character over, I felt this obligation to the fans of like, well, she was always the one who investigates stuff and not immediately start hacking at stuff with swords while the rest of them is a bit of a wrecking crew. So I really wanted to do honor to her voice. And I even messaged her back and forth. It's like, okay, like, how am I doing? What do you think? And she was like, I'm having a baby. It's fine. Don't worry about it. But then she ended up going on extended hiatus and I took her character over permanently. And then I got her character killed. And I felt horrible. But I think I did it because I was being accurate with how I was playing her character. She approached some giants and tried to take a diplomatic route, and then she got squished.
Yeah, it happens.
Well, it's a good way to go out if you're going to go out.
It is. But I feel like I've sort of carried her torch a little bit as the group investigator, and now that I'm DM, I'm definitely trying to make sure the characters don't forget about story, even though they like to blow stuff up all the time.
It's a hard thing to do as a dungeon master, right? Yeah. To be like, by the way, you can, maybe interrogate some of these people if you want to learn something.
Talk. Can't we just talk?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. They've killed, I think, every NPC that I've thrown at them with like a couple of exceptions. So in their defense, I put them in an evil land. Like I kind of stranded them in this post-apocalyptic island that is like a refuge for all this evil. Right. And they're recognizing it, and their response is to go, oh, you got some lore in your back pocket? I wonder what your back pocket would look like while it's on fire.
So that's on you, man.
Yeah, trust issues.
It kind of is on me, but
So how do you think you're going to work with that as going forward?
It's tricky. I think one thing that's interesting is I don't want to reveal it yet because we've recorded a few episodes in the future, but the sessions that we're recording tonight deal largely with their characters sort of making some choices that are slightly at odds with their chaotic good alignment. So it'll be interesting to see how they deal with it. I've been trying to craft it so, the situation will actually present them with a lot of NPCs at once. So they'll have to kind of figure out like, okay, if we're going to fight, it's going to have a ramification on these other NPCs that might be watching and stuff like that. So I'm hoping there'll be enough reflective surfaces that they will be able to see their own choices within them.
Right. And they can, mentioning the political atmosphere that's going on right now, you can be like, oh, right. Maybe you don't want to just kill everything.
It's hard when I keep giving him new races that I've homebrewed that all have sharp piranha teeth, but
Yeah, right. This character that has his teeth filed down to a sharp point, he's really a good guy. It's kind of a hard sell.
Yeah.
He's a good conversationalist.
So is it when you're DMing and also being someone who has such a strong improv background, how much preparation do you do for your campaigns?
Well, I'm really trying to do myself a favor by prepping. I think actually DMing is a lot like doing stand-up in that you've got to do a lot of improv if you want to be good, but if you want to seem polished, you've got to do a lot of homework and repetitive tasks and stuff like that, like building characters. So I like to do Google spreadsheets with everything in them. They're real handy because everything can be made into a stretchable or shrinkable column. they'll do the math for you. So like I've got a Google sheet with all the characters' experience points in it for a given evening and their total so far, so they can peek into it and see like how close they are to leveling up again. And so it's a little transparent. It's not just like the dungeon master being like, "Oh, you leveled up because I'm bored." And I'm also keeping spreadsheets of like all the NPCs, what their stats are, how damaged they are, and I had a map cooked up that I think is really fun. I'm obsessed with maps and illustrations. Part of what I love about stand-up is like if you're going to go do a show, you can have a poster made of like the show to promote it and have like a really cool illustrator draw it. So there's this guy, Sean Bryant, who works at DreamWorks, who's been doing a lot of cool fan art and posting it on Twitter and Instagram. And I asked him if he would draw up a map of this whole sort of post-apocalyptic island that they're stranded on, because I was sitting on this map. I gave them like a really dumbed down version of it that I drew up, because I used to do illustration, but it's a lot of work and it takes a lot of focus and I get really impatient. So I'm really out of practice. So I gave him this map and I said, this land you're in is called Amina. And like, here's where I put, the docks that you landed on.
Right. And
they were like, okay. And I love maps. I don't know how into maps they are, but I love maps. And so I had written on this map as a Dungeon Master version with like all the locations of other castles and caves and swamps and their names, because if they bumped into somebody who could teach them more, I wanted them to be able to learn more about this place. So
right.
Before they kill
them and murder them, yeah.
Yeah, and they recently murdered this vampire, and I was like, well, while you're looting your castle, you find this map that he had.
Yes.
And it's got like all the locations. Some of them are labeled, some of them aren't. It's made to look like the vampire had it sort of commissioned for himself as like a rich person sort of little bauble for him to display and show off to people.
Are you the vampire in this story?
I was, and actually I modeled the vampire's voice after Mark Hamill's Joker in Batman.
Oh, that's hard.
So we kind of talk like this.
That is a specific, vocal treatment there. That's hard to pull off for a long time.
Theater degree, bro. You know what it's like.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, good. Phew. That's why Shelly and I never succeeded in that, because we were like, we'll kill our voices.
I know.
Oh my God. I love maps too. And I love the idea that you were able to draw on, somebody from DreamWorks to make your player handout.
I know, right?
It looks so cool. I'm going to post it to our Patreon later tonight when episode 11 goes up. I'm going to throw those things both up there. He basically took all my notes of like, well, there's a big wooden golem that hides in these woods, and this is Elven territory, and this mountain is called Misery's Finger. And he drew it all into the map.
I flicked off the camera during the Misery's Finger because I had to. It felt like that's what it would look like.
Misery's Finger, I want to be the name of an 80s butt rock band.
Butt rock?
Yeah.
Well, Sean, the guy who drew it, made a joke immediately about the proctologist.
Yes.
That is super cool. And yeah, it reminds me of when I was doing I ran Tomb of Horrors recently, and we made this cloth map of Tomb of Horrors that was kind of like a player map with some notes in it from the creator of the Tomb of Horrors that were misleading, right? And I did this as swag so I could give it out to people, but I actually got to pull it out at PAX East and be like, here's the map that you guys find. And it was super cool. So being able to do that for like a completely homebrew world that you're making and having it have the quality of an illustrator from DreamWorks making it happen, that's nailing it.
I'm super flattered that he would do it, and I'm pretty stoked. I love homebrew and stuff too. Like as much as I love going over the monster manual, as I said, and they fought a beholder, they fought a couple of vampires that were not that non-different, but there's some other vampires they're gonna find pretty soon.
Nice.
That are not as typical. Got some other transformative properties and such. Because the apocalypse happened and there's special circumstances.
I hope all your players are listening to this stream right now so they can know what they're going to get into tonight.
Nah. Hopefully they're not, right? Like, hopefully this will be a surprise.
Just kidding.
Just kidding, you guys.
Just throwing you off.
That's awesome. I would love to see that map. So yeah, I can't wait to see where it is online.
Yeah, we'll post it tonight to the Patreon.
Sweet. So speaking of, the business side of running your own podcast kind of thing, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of people who are listening who have seen, you know, the Stream of Annihilation as well as all the live play podcasts that are out there and are like, hey, how can I do that? So I know you came into it kind of midstream here, but is there any insight you could give to people on running your own show like this?
I'll just say, because I've been a guest on a lot of podcasts, but this is the only podcast I've ever really felt any kind of like ownership of. And it's even then, it's all Brian's show. You know, he does all the real business. What I will say, what really sticks out at me that I would always give advice for is microphones. Get a real microphone. Get like a for real, like no matter how you want to record, be it video, audio, plunk down for like a serious studio microphone. Get a soundboard so you can have multiple sources going into a computer. Figure out if you're going to use GarageBand or Pro Tools and how you're going to use GarageBand or Pro Tools, and make sure that sounds fucking clear. Like really play with it. Maybe hire an engineer. I see you're pointing at your microphones, Greg. I bet you're a fan of those.
We're pointing at Ryan.
For that reason too, because we used to get a lot of those comments as well. I mean, you know, we here at Dungeons and Dragons, we make Dungeons and Dragons. We're not necessarily like production oriented as much, although we do have awesome people we can draw on. But we started this kind of as making it up as we go, and so we've constantly making small choices along the way to get better microphones, better things, having a sound engineer like Ryan. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, Ryan. Now we have Sean.
And Sean as well, helping out with the video. But yeah, you're right. I think, you know, having just someone who can volunteer and help out. Maybe they can be one of the players or one of the other people who are doing it. But if they have any expertise in that, it really does help. And I think sound is more important than video for these kind of things.
Absolutely. I think we had just issues with the distance, and it would drive people crazy because we spent the first 2 months recording just in Brian's house on our own with a microphone that I thought was good, hooked up to like the spare laptop Brian had, just running GarageBand, and it worked fine, but it really was not up to our own standards. So we've got an in-house guy. So episode 11 on, we've got 5 microphones, more if there's guests, all that stuff.
Wow.
Sweet. Makes sense.
So are you finding that a lot of people that you work with or meet in the comedy scene or just in the Hollywood world, do they all have a secret D&D connection? Or I guess not so secret now, but it does seem like a lot of creative folks do have the D&D background.
Oh, yeah. It's been really fun to be connected to this podcast and have people use it as a conversation starter. Like, oh, you do this too? Of course, people like Joe Manganiello and Vin Diesel play. And there's been multiple moments where just writer friends of mine or comedian friends of mine who've never played before have been like, oh, I always wanted to do that. I have to play that with you. And a lot of illustrators play it. That's been a really cool thing I've discovered. My buddy Sarah Pocock, who's you might know her. She's married to James Urbaniak from Venture Brothers. When I started on Nerd Poker, she was like, "Holy shit, I love Nerd Poker! I love Dungeons and Dragons," and she plays with her kids. And
that's cool.
Yeah, I love playing with my kids. I play with my kids too.
How old are your kids?
5 and 9, and I sort of did my own version of D&D with them to make it a little simple to keep the 5-year-old's attention. So,
how do you do that?
I boil it down to, first of all, I guess I'm expecting some sort of, pay for this since I'm adapting for kids for the official D&D, stream here.
Sure. Yeah. We're sending it down right away.
Greg will take care of that for you.
A few grand. I'd really, no.
What's your PayPal?
DanTelfer@gmail.com. You get it down to strength, intelligence, and charisma. So it's like a physical, an intellectual, and a social skill.
Right.
And you just have them roll 20s all the time, and you assign their weapon a dice basically, and you keep it simple. It's tough because, they want to understand the complicated version of it.
Right. It's
And
aspirational for them.
And I want to give them the complicated version of it. So as they've been going and getting more used to it, I've been turning it more into just straight up 5th edition. And they're not ready for armored class yet, but I feel like, if you keep it real simple and you work up to the main thing, that's almost just a diagram for how anyone should be introduced to D&D. You don't sweat the details too much when you just want people to have fun.
Right. Yeah. It's more about the story and them making decisions that they can see happen, the effects of which happen, right? That's the most important thing to get across when they're that young, right?
That's good advice even for we're DMing for adults too, is don't sweat the details so much if you just want to have fun.
You end up playing with people who are not super combat oriented sometimes. And like my 5-year-old, for instance, who she's a dragonborn princess who just doesn't want to fight. She just wants to be evil and hang out in a castle while people fight her. She loves being evil. She's total Slytherin. What did she came up to me this morning and I was super sleepy and she was just like, "Daddy, did you know we are all just full of so much blood?" I was like, I know, and she's just got she wants to be a veterinarian when she grows up. She actively says she wants to know about biology to help animals, and
that's
it's
cool.
super cute. But like
I could see that taking that opening taking a really dark turn though. Yeah. She's like, "You're full of blood, but do you know if there's one hole and it'll all come out?"
Not anymore,
one
Daddy.
Thing I love to remind people in creative fields, like dark stuff is often just an expression of wanting to have control over dark stuff. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. It's like, it just means, you know it's out there and you want to have power over it and not let it have power over you. So I encourage that stuff if she's interested in it.
That's an interesting way to think about it, because my youngest daughter is going to turn 4 soon, and she is the same way, identifies with the villains, wants to be Ursula, wants to be Maleficent. But she's also got some behavioral problems going on, for being a 4-year-old. So I feel like maybe what you just said kind of maybe just unlocked something in my brain where I'm like, well, maybe she's actually, because she also has nightmares and things about that. So maybe she's actually just trying to be the bad guy that's in control.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think, I'm still a believer in the basic psychology of if you show a young person a graphic image, it can scar them for life. There's no question there. I'm not showing her pictures of I'm very careful what I'll let her see from the Monsters Manual. But at the same time, there's this really cool book I would love to recommend to any parents out there who are nerds called Killing Monsters by Gerard Jones. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's a comic book artist and writer. And it was written in 2002, so a lot has changed since then. Mm-hmm. But it's a really interesting book about kids and make-believe violence and why they gravitate towards it, and just as simple as why do kids want to hit each other with a plastic lightsaber, and that kind of thing. And as a parent, I found it really heartening. It made me go okay, so if my kid is creepy and beats me up, there's a real simple way to deal with it.
I need that book.
Yeah, I want that book too.
Yes.
It's awesome. Gerard Jones, Gerard, and it's called Killing Monsters: Why Children Need Fantasy, Superheroes, and Make-Believe Violence.
Okay, they need it.
Because when I was game journalist, I used to hear about that all the time, where people would complain about so many video games, having guns, and we're always predicated on shooting and killing people, and especially with all the shootings going on in the world, it was very easy for parents that I was talking to just be like, "Oh, they're bad. I won't let my kids play ever." Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think that's the answer. I don't think. I understood that. Yeah, people want to have control over that stuff. They don't want to necessarily be doing it in real life. They want the safe simulated version of it to work through whatever it is they're working through. And it's not. And all play. If you go back, you look at cats playing together. It's pretty violent. And they're learning their limitations and how to do better and get stronger. So I think there's some of that in video games and the kind of online play that we're playing, or tabletop play is where you want to exercise those muscles, but not, in a safe environment. Does that make sense? Is that what that book's about?
I think so.
Did I just explain the book?
Spoiler.
All right. Well, I guess I don't need to read it then. I'm good. I got it already.
Sense. Quinn
well,
and
he
his...
actually.
Oh, sorry.
I can't. Oh no. No. Go ahead.
No, you're the guest. You go.
Well, Shelley, I find you fascinating, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
It's not that. I'm not even going to say it now because it's not good now.
I don't want to get too dark. I don't want to get too real, but my brother, who first introduced me to D&D, actually passed away in 2001.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he was in the military, and he was just real depressed, and he took his own life. And I've always been interested in just like, well, then what is the point of anything? What is the point of violence? What is the point of war? And wanting to just sort of resolve all that stuff in my head. And this book really assuaged a lot of my fears about being a parent. When he had this one chapter, it talked about he visited kids who were in war-torn parts of Europe who would play like a lot of Doom and stuff like that, and they just felt relief. They just felt like a great tension in their heart had just been let go. And it didn't mean that they wanted to actually create any violence in real life. It's just they wanted control over it.
Now I feel relief.
Yeah.
But I do feel like sometimes Quinn is like, he's got this stuffed rabbit that he actually named after his grandpa, and all he does is kick it. He's always just like, come here, Carrot Gecky. And he loves his grandpa. And why are you so mean to this bunny?
So disturbing. Yeah.
It's so disturbing. And he just is very, I just think like, he's mean to animals. He's going to be a serial killer. Like,
but that's not what it means.
But maybe not. Maybe not. He's just...
Yeah. I've noticed that my kids are very, very well behaved in school, like really, really well behaved, and really love to please their teacher. But they both come home and they want to just punch the shit out of me. Like they love to play a game where they'll like hide behind a corner and just uppercut me in the genitals.
Yeah,
and
we have those games too.
And it sucks, but I think a lot of it might actually have to do with how I got sick, and they're worried about like, is daddy strong? Like, is he okay?
Oh.
And if I can get away with doing this, does that just mean that all that hurt is just goofiness?
That's really interesting. I wonder
is.
if that is. It's like they're almost, I mean, like, as I was saying before about like, cats and dogs play pretty violently. Like, I wonder if that's what they're trying to test your boundaries now too.
Yeah, and if you see
the
pets that play most violently are the little ones who don't know better, and when they're in a group of a litter and they're just tackling the hell out of each other and biting the hell out of each other, you notice they very rarely make each other bleed. They look like they're just trashing each other, but like they just get exhausted and lay on top of each other when they're done.
Yeah. And that's pretty much my life goals with my kids. Just get them as tired as they can possibly get so that they lay on me and fall asleep. Oh, man. Well, that is super interesting. I don't think it was too dark at all because, I mean, there's a lot of D&D plays with a lot of those things, Like, you get to work out some of that stuff. And I think it's kind of interesting that you're able to move forward through some of those things with that stuff.
Yeah. I agree.
That's a good way to bring it all back.
I was trying to bring it all back around.
That was good.
Excellent work, Greg.
Yeah.
Sweet. So you mentioned that you're getting back into playing tonight. So you guys play kind of for Nerd Poker once every month or so, and then cut those up into episodes? Is that how it works?
About every 2 weeks we play for 2 hours, and then we cut it up in episodes.
Is it easier to think about DMing that way in like an episodic kind of way, or you
kind of? Yeah. I mean, you think about like, okay, they can only acknowledge so much. If you have a fight last the whole episode, it's got to be visually interesting. You got to make sure the NPCs have an interesting armament or a fighting style. And the danger rooms have been fun. We do bonus episodes where I cook up an adventure that's only supposed to last 2 hours, cut in half. And that's been really fun. I love cooking up danger rooms where I'm basically making up a whole module that's meant to be finished in 2 hours.
Those are fun. I like those too because in some ways, because usually those are pretty simple and there's a lot of room for role play.
Yeah, totally. I mean, you've got a clock, you've got high stakes.
Is it actually, I mean, you mentioned a danger room. Is it actually like they're all like stuck in a room, like a puzzle room type thing, or is it?
I first heard danger room a long time ago in reference to one-off D&D adventures. I apologize. I thought it was more common shorthand, but like it basically is a reference to the X-Men where they would practice fighting. So like it just means that like if you want, you could accrue experience and loot, but really it's a one-off. where you bring in a character and there's no long-term consequences because you're not worried about the long-term. Like when you're done, you're done.
Yeah, I like that. I like playing in games like that. It's kind of like, like a convention one-off where you're not going to meet with these specific people probably again, but it's super fun, concentrated, no longevity.
Not attached to your character.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can be, a lot of people play themselves or play versions of themselves for long campaigns, but for one-offs, I always find that those are the ones where you can go completely loopy and just get into
try different things.
Yeah, completely different. That's way different from you as a person. I don't know if you want to live in that alter ego all the time for like but it's nice just for 2 hours.
Well, like we had Danger Room episodes with Joe Manganiello, and he brought his character Archon the Cruel on and got married. I made an NPC that he married,
so sweet.
and it was, and we said that he had met the rest of the party at a bar and just sort of invited them last minute, and then because his character is evil, that it descended into demon summoning, and a bunch of succubuses tried to crash the wedding, and in 2 hours we were done. Yeah.
Yep.
I like that you brought in like all of what I know about Joe's background as far as recently married, was in a movie about male strippers. It all seemed like it all got tied together in that one episode.
Crashing the wedding. The minute it happened.
It happened.
I read about it.
Yeah.
Last week.
There were real succubuses there.
Totally.
And then we had Sarkon, who was the old DM, and he played multiple characters, which he hadn't played any characters since years and years and years ago. So that was fun.
So Nerd Poker it's audio only, right?
Right now it is. We did do a Twitch stream in the beginning when we hit 500 Patreon, and we'll do another one when we hit 1,000 Patreon subscribers.
But no plans to go permanently live?
Maybe. I think we would love to in a perfect world. It would just mean, more overhead. So maybe we're building up to it. I don't know.
Maybe. That would be cool.
Well, you mentioned the Patreon. How can people contribute to becoming a patron?
It's patreon.com/nerdpoker. And for $5 a month, you get every episode a day before everybody else, and 2 bonus episodes where we have cool guests like Mike Drucker, Rick Remender, a really awesome comic book writer for Black Science and Tokyo Ghost, was on. Joe Manganiello was on. We're gonna have we just had Sarah Gazzardo and Sark on. We're gonna have all sorts of people, 2 episodes a month, and other little surprises.
That's super cool. Now, I feel like there's a lot of names that we know of people who play Dungeons and Dragons out there, like the people we've been talking about. Are there any that you know of that you don't think the general public knows of, and they would be okay with you outing them as D&D fans?
Oh, man. I don't know. That's a real tough one.
I'm putting you on the spot.
How about this? I'll say our head writer at Midnight, Joe Randazzo, has not played yet, but I gave him a 5th edition player's book, and he's been reading it, and he really wants to play. He's turning into a big fucking nerd.
Nice.
He's a former head writer for The Onion, really, really great writer, comedian, and I'm seducing him currently.
Nice.
To the dark side.
Yes.
Awesome. That's the way to do it. You just got to give them one book, and then it's like, oh, I like this.
The first one's free.
Now I'm getting all the jokes that you guys have been making this whole time.
Yeah, exactly.
How does so I'm just gonna nerd out a little bit. How does Out at Midnight work as far as because I know the framework obviously from being an audience member, but how does it work behind the scenes?
I don't know how much I'm at liberty to say, but I can definitely tell you most of it. It's we start off the day with the research. Researchers do everything. They're badasses, and they're really funny people. If you want to follow them on Twitter, they can. They include Rosa Pasquera, Alexis Gibson, Garrison Taylor, Paris Lay. They're really funny people. Adam Tolzitz, and they find the weirdest, craziest shit on the internet. Weird like bats wearing minions masks flying into a room, and then a kid beats it down with a wiffle bat, like just the craziest weird shit. And the writers build games out of it. They build is it going to be this kind of game, that kind of game, and then there's a graphics department that makes examples out of everything. and then we prep Hardwick when he comes in, and we do a couple of rehearsals, and boom, we're live to tape, and we send that shit off, and it airs either that night or the next night, depending what day it is.
That's amazing.
So it's all like a day-long process.
Pretty much. And now we're taping 2 episodes on Monday, 2 on Wednesday most weeks. And so we'll, tape Monday night's episode at 4:00 on Monday, and then Tuesday night's episode 8:00 on Monday, and same thing with Wednesday, Thursday.
That's
oh my
interesting.
God.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how we do Dragon Talk.
It's exactly how we do Dragon Talk.
All that research.
Yeah, except we don't have that. Well, I guess you could say the D&D team are the researchers in a way, and I pull them in to do stuff. But yeah, man. Well, I mean, it's funny because a lot of we're obviously doing this streaming thing as much as possible here now. But it's funny how much I wish I had more TV production background because it is that level of like, oh, you just got to get it up and do it.
You didn't know.
And make it happen, right.
How would you know this was in your future?
I did not know. I roundabout made my way back into the entertainment industry somehow.
Yes, somehow you made it back.
Awesome. Well, that's why I'm going to continue to pick the expert's brain like yours, Dan, about best practices because it's always about improving.
It is.
Slowly but surely.
Valuable.
Kids these days and their technology. Soon Dan's 5-year-old will be able to produce the live stream for him.
That's a good idea, actually. At least your 9-year-old.
She's brilliant. I'm sure she could.
Yeah. They'll know how to do it.
Love it. All right, man. Well, it was really good talking to you, and I'm excited to let you get back to DMing for Brian and the rest of the gang for Nerd Poker tonight.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for having me on. And I'm Telfer Dan on Twitch if anyone wants to watch me play Overwatch sometime.
No, I didn't realize that. Yeah, you mentioned that you did some Twitch streaming. Have you been? How often are you on?
I used to do it more when I made a little bit of cash money on it, but I've kind of let it slip a little bit. So I play like once a week. I'll play a little bit of Bloodborne or Overwatch. I've been playing a lot of Persona 5 lately, which doesn't let you stream. So.
Oh man, I love that game though.
It's so good.
I just met Matt Mercer's character. I'm blanking on his name, but
he's in it.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he comes in like after the first. I don't want to give too many spoilers away, but there's you have the one like dungeon, and then after that there's some downtime, and then you'll meet Matt.
I must have met him and not recognized him. I've already beaten the second dungeon. So.
Oh yeah, no, he's the art student.
Oh really?
Yeah.
So he's in my party now.
Yeah.
That's great. He's super emo for Matt Mercer.
It is, and I love. I mean, you almost didn't recognize his voice because he doesn't do too much. Yusuke, yes, thank you, chat, for giving the name. Yeah, because he's almost like I think he's just talking straight up. He's not doing any kind of affectation to it too much.
Yeah, it's not nearly his Overwatch voice, which is it's I do.
Right. I'm a Western man.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad I was able to give you that little nugget of information and give him. I want to give Matt a high five when I see him again too, because I'm like, you're so good at my party.
I got to do their Hearthstone video series last year. That was really fun.
That is fun. Good times. All right, dude. And where can people find you on Twitter as well?
Oh, I'm just Dan Telfer on Twitter. Just straight up at Dan Telfer. Please follow me and listen to me rail against Donald Trump's healthcare system and make jokes about seahorses and pudding. I try to keep it light as well as heavy. And yeah.
Seahorses and pudding.
And Trump.
Are you going to go on tour at all? Are you going to do any shows up in Seattle?
Oh, I would love to. Seattle is actually, I think, my favorite place to do comedy. That's actually, I think, where I first met Mike Drucker. He's from Seattle. Or not from Seattle, but he worked there at Nintendo for a while.
Oh.
That's right. He was in the Treehouse, wasn't he?
Yes. So I've done stand-up up there with, Brian Cook. I don't know if you know comedian Brian Cook. He's a TV writer also. Really funny guy. I love Seattle.
Come back anytime.
I would love to.
Sweet. All right, man. Well, take it easy, and good talking to you, and we'll talk again soon.
Say hi to the crew tonight.
Good idea.
Thanks so much for having me on, you guys.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Sweet.
I like him.
I like him too. That was a really good conversation.
That was fun.
I kind of want to have him on again and talk more about the dark stuff. I want to actually get into it because there was so much.
I kind of feel better about Quinn's violence.
About Quinn's behavior, about Fiona's violence? I know, right?
She's got the violence too.
There's some things. Yeah, she works out. She's got this one. This has happened over at camping, but they were fighting the entire time, where it would be like they're playing nice, and then the two of them would both put their heels in together at the same time, and then there would be like scratching, fighting, like full on like physical fights happening.
Really?
It happened like maybe 4 times over the course of
a weekend.
Over the weekend.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And it's like I want to teach you that those are not the right ways to solve problems and do all that. And so there was a lot of that. But
Or you just put him in a cage and let him go for it.
Or teach her how to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Channel it.
Channel it into that.
Channel it somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
There's that. It's nice to work it out.
It's nice to work it out.
Nice.
Working it out.
Let's do this as our outro. You want to do this as our actual real outro?
That's our outro.
For this episode?
Outed.
All right.
We're outing.
Shelly, where can people find out about what's going on with you?
You can find me on Twitter.
Yes.
At Shelly Moo.
Shelly Moo?
Shelly Moo.
You like cows?
Mm-hmm. My mom calls me Moo Moo.
Oh.
That's cute.
That is pretty cute.
Yeah.
You're also doing some things for the Avalon Hill.
And the Avalon Hill. Find Avalon Hill at Avalon Hill 2, the number 2.
On Twitter. Yes.
Or on Facebook. You can find Avalon Hill Games. You can find me on Facebook. You can find my mom on Facebook. She has an alias, so you actually won't find her on Facebook.
Unless you're really smart.
Yes.
In which way
Unless
you might be able to.
follow me and you see me going, hey, mommy, blah, blah, blah. Don't forget to watch Barefoot Contessa tonight. It's a really good recipe for a white sauce.
Nice. And we mentioned Betrayal at Baldur's Gate as the
October
next
6th.
big thing coming. It's October 6th.
So good.
Excited about that.
And if you're an Axis and Allies fan, you might be excited to know that the anniversary edition is coming back. Sean, are you excited about that? Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Coming back in September.
I'm very excited about
Are you
that too.
excited?
Yeah,
You-
dude, I'm
you
playing in the
play in
game
the
right
game
now.
too, that's
I'm playing as
right.
Russia, and I'm about to make an attack against those Italian forces because in the anniversary edition, Italy is its own faction.
Do you remember when I played Russia in diplomacy?
I do remember when you played Russia, and I said, "Don't trust Ben Petrosor," and you did, and he backstabbed you.
Several times.
And then now the game is no longer in print because of this
I
one
tried.
game.
I just want to take that game out of print. Hold on to your copies, people, because you're never getting it again.
She's creating artificial scarcity in the market. What's going on here? You're playing the long game, aren't you, Shelly Moo? It's true. So you can ask me any questions about Axis and Allies, my failed comedy career, or Dungeons & Dragons. At Greg Tito, I'm on Twitter.
Might not be failed.
At Greg Tito. Well, it's kind
can
of
keep
like
going.
I can make
Try
you laugh.
again.
That's about it. I can make you laugh.
But are you making me laugh, or is that my theater background?
My self-esteem is falling apart every day. Anyway, I'm at Greg Tito. Make sure you build me up, Buttercup, just to let me down. And if you want to find out about Dungeons & Dragons, you can go to wizards_DND. That's on the Twitters. It's also on Facebook, Dungeons & Dragons. Or go to twitch.tv/DND, and you can watch all of this
Right
craziness
now.
happen on Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific time, except for July 3rd, and all of the amazing other weekly streaming shows that we got going on. And of course, go check out Nerd Poker if you haven't already.
It's
on
very funny.
Wherever you can find podcasts, it's available for free, of course. Dan Telfer, our interview guest here, is the illustrious DM for them now.
You will like him.
They're very funny.
They're very funny.
Anything else?
Who knew?
going on?
Like a
Okay.
bunch of comedians playing D&D would be funny.
I know, right?
So weird.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Speaking of insane, Tomb of Annihilation is coming out soon. It's like September 19th is not that far away. It really
That's
isn't.
scary.
But if you want to check out some of that storyline ahead of time, you can find it out in Neverwinter, the fantasy MMO that's set in the Forgotten Realms. That's coming out July 25th on PC. You'll find out all about the Tomb of Annihilation then and interact with that story before you get even some of the RPG content that we've got going on.
And Chris Perkins.
And Chris Perkins
As
is doing
the
a
voice
voice. That's right. He's recording a voice. I think he's the voice of Volo. Just throwing that out there. It's going to be cool.
I gotta hear this.
I think that's it. I think that's all I'm going to talk about right now. You guys are the best. Thank you for bearing with us. You are amazing. We are not going to be streaming next Monday, July 3rd. We're taking that off. We should be back the following Monday, which is July 10th. And thank you. Do not forget to do the intro. Thank you, chat, for that. You're good people.
We love you, Chad.
Thanks for bearing with us. You're the best.
Yep.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. we're going to do some time traveling. I just traveled like 5 seconds back into the future. And
feel like
then we're
it's
going to do some time traveling. We're going to do back into the future. I wish I had the memory to actually continue to repeat that so people think we were on a time.
I was actually impressed with your memory that you can remember all these dates and the this and the Neverwinter and the coming on the this and the Volo, whatever.
Yeah.
That's because of your theater background.
You think so?
That's what I got out of being a theater major.
Was being able to memorize?
I'm really good at memorizing.
See, if you give me lines for a play, I'm not good at that. Or at least I think I'm so self-doubting that I like psych myself out, similar to how we did to start this when we were talking to Jeremy Crawford. I started to do an intro and I like thought about it and psyched myself out a little bit. I'm like, oh, let's start over.
Oh.
But that's why I have notes. I have notes on this handy dandy machine to go to check to some of those dates.
Print.
Some of the stuff I remember, but some of them I don't because we got so many announcements to go through. I need a little bit of a cheat sheet here.
Yep. Well, still.
For sure.
Your theater background makes it look like you're memorizing.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we're going to do our intro. So you guys get to see the magic of that happening right now.
Awesome.
I already said goodbye to you all, but we're going to do it again.
Now we're going to pretend
we're going to say hello.
This podcast never happened.
And then goodbye again. All right. So you ready? You ready?
Yeah.
I think Zen. Ryan, are you recording? Okay, good. He shook his head no, and then he said, wait, no, yes, I am recording, but he's not ready. Welcome to Dragon Talk. Is that good? Should I do it again?
That was good.
Welcome to Dragon Talk. Oh, that one was worse. That was terrible. That was some clipping. There was definitely some clipping involved in that one.
Is this live?
No.
People see this.
Welcome to Dragon Talk, ladies and gentlemen.
Different personas.
I'm Greg Tito, and I'm joined by
Shelley Mazzanoble.
Is that your name? I always thought it was. It's today. Okay, good. All right, you're not going to switch it up. That's good. That's a good call. We have an amazing interview guest
How do you know
on this segment.
He's amazing.
Because we already talked to him.
I know!
I mean, no, we didn't.
I mean,
this is
I hope it's a good conversation.
We shall talk about so many things.
I hope it doesn't get too dark.
We won't talk about homicide or suicide or cancer at all. And we'll concentrate on D&D for kids.
Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because that's the positive thing that we're going with going forward. It is Dan Telfer, who is now the Dungeon Master for Nerd Poker. He is a very funny guy. He's been a comedian for a long time. And I think he's got some theater background too. Theater, writes comedy.
Yep, improv.
Yeah.
Does it all.
Does it all. And really good to talk to him. He's got some great ideas about some things.
I have a feeling.
You have a feeling that he loves?
I feel like he's going to be a really good.
We are traveling so much through time right now. It's hurting my brain.
I don't even know where I am.
But you have some fun things going on. You were just at Origins when we're recording this, but it'll be a few weeks ago as far as when people are listening to this.
Yeah.
So did you want to give any quick...
It's just a super fun show.
Yeah.
If you like board games, if you don't like long lines, if you like actually meeting some small publishers and seeing what they've got going on, it's a really good show. And if you like the D&D, there's a lot of D&D.
Yeah.
That ballroom was filled.
Trevor Gidd did a good job putting all the D&D together.
And Dave Christ with
from Baldman Games.
Yep, his crew is always amazing, and it was very, very organized, and they seemed like they were having a great time.
Nice.
And we got to do some playthroughs of Betrayal at Baldur's Gate. Loved watching the people play. Like they're D&D fans, and they just got really into it, and they said it totally feels like D&D.
Yeah.
And I just loved watching them see things for the first time. Like it's never not funny when somebody uncovers the deck of many things.
The deck of many things is in there?
That is. And they will always roll on the deck of many things, even though it's clearly saying like, keep going.
It could be a bad thing.
It's not going to be as good the more you draw on it.
Right.
But they do. They can't stop.
There is something about that magic item where you just want to keep going.
Yeah,
and keep
always.
Going.
Yeah.
For people who don't know about Betrayal or the new product, what's the quick?
Betrayal at Baldur's Gate is a new board game coming out in October that's based on an existing board game called Betrayal at House on the Hill, which has been out for quite a few years and has surged in popularity.
Surged.
And around 2013 when it was featured on Tabletop with Will Wheaton.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, House on the you really your theater background.
Whoa.
House on the Hill. You are explorers, and you are exploring a haunted house that you build as you flip tiles, tile by tile by tile.
Yeah.
And then at a pivotal point in the game, something terrible happens, and the house turns one of you against the rest of the party. You become a traitor, and you have opposing goals and objectives. Baldur's Gate is similar, except you are not exploring a house, you're exploring the city of Baldur's Gate.
Oh, that's cool.
Through streets, through buildings, and through the catacombs.
The catacombs.
And of course, if you are a Dungeons & Dragons player and you have an opportunity to go across the street or down into the catacombs, where do you go?
I'm going to go to the catacombs.
They always go to the catacombs.
They always draw from the deck of many things.
They draw from the deck of many things. Oh, and it was also interesting because when you're playing D&D, you tend to work as a party and you go together. And in Betrayal at House on the Hill, you always scatter because you're all trying to find different items and everything before the haunt triggers. And with Betrayal at Baldur's Gate, the players immediately just
they
spread out. And the whole time that we were playtesting we had been doing since it was like February, and until I was at Origins a couple weeks ago, there was only been one person who before the game started asked, hey, should we stick together? Or should we split up? And they were like, oh, we should definitely split up. But nobody even asked it.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
So it's just like, I guess it's
a different style.
It's a different style, even
and then
though
you come
are
together
playing
at the end.
D&D.
You come together at the end to like
it or not, you're going to come together.
Right. Well, that's super cool.
Yeah, it was really, really good. It was fun to see everybody.
October 6th?
October 6th.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that.
Me too.
So a couple weeks ago, we had the Stream of Annihilation where we introduced our new storyline, Tomb of Annihilation. We got some, well, you got some, whatever. You can check out some of the amazing streaming shows that are coming weekly on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/DND. All of the groups that we introduced at the Stream of Annihilation are doing weekly shows. We got Maze Arcana are doing 2 shows, Tuesdays at 7 p.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Pacific time. Misclick's D&D Risen is starting at Wednesday at, I'm looking at it now, it's 3 p.m., 4 p.m. Yes, 4 p.m. on Wednesdays Pacific time. And then, of course, Dice Camera Action with Chris Perkins is happening 4 to 6 p.m. on Tuesdays. They will continue to take the Waffle Crew through all those fun and fancy things. Girls Guts Glory is been going on every Thursdays at 2 p.m. We debut an episode while also talking to some of the cast members and getting them a little bit like podcasty thing like this. You can check that out Thursdays 2 p.m. Pacific time. And then on Fridays, you'll be able to check out High Rollers, Uncharted Territory, 12 noon on Fridays Pacific time. They're doing it at a different time because they're in the UK. Speaking of different time zones, Australian friends, the Dragon Friends, will be performing theirs on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific time. They're actually going to be doing it in the future. They will actually be noon on Saturday streaming an episode that I don't understand time zones. It doesn't really make any sense to me, but all you need to know if you live in the Pacific Coast, 7 p.m. Pacific time is when Dragon Friends are going on.
I'm assuming all this is on the Twitch channel?
All this is on the Twitch channel. You can go check it out
but
there.
They can see the whole schedule?
They can see the whole schedule, including us talking on the stream on Mondays at 2 p.m. Pacific time for about 2 or 3 hours, doing it at different times, except for July 3rd. But I think this is actually, you're going to be listening to this after July 3rd. I'm going to point to the camera a couple more times.
I thought you were pointing at Sean.
I know, I should be. And this is for audio, so we're really screwing all this up. That's about it. We're going to get to our interview guest in a little bit, Dan Telfer. But before then, we have an amazing segment, which you're going to listen to around right now with some bings and some bongs.
Yay! Bing bong.
Bing bong.
Bing.
This is the midtro.
Bing bong.
All right. That was a really great segment. Whatever it was. I really like talking to both Chris, Matt, and or Jeremy.
I really
in that
loved
segment.
talking to whoever you talked to.
It was really good inside. I love it, man, because we really get to pick their brains.
He was so good.
That person was amazing.
That coworker of ours.
He said some amazing D&D bombs into my head, and now I know them. All right, we're going to get straight to our guest, who is just an amazing kind of performer, writer, and comedian extraordinaire.
And Dungeon Master.
And Dungeon Master, it's true. So let's call him up on the Skype right about nowzos.
Bing bong.
Wait, no, there's no bing bongs there. There's...
Wow, that was super good.
That's my Skype.
Is that it? I gotta go get my baby.
All right, we're leaving for real, guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you for bearing with us during that intro
Sorry,
and outro.
I forgot we were still here.
I know, there's real people there.
I have to go pick my child up from daycare.
Do you really?
They are going to start charging
based on
$1 a minute when you're late.
Based on everything we know about Quinn, do you really want to go pick him up?
Yes.
All
Okay.
right. Again, thank you guys for bearing with us. We won't be here next week, but we will be back on July 10th, where you'll be able to watch all of this hilarity and all of the jazz hands.
No.
We're going to go out with jazz hands. Here we go. Bye.
Bye. Theater major can't do jazz.